Amazing discovery. My Dil'S phone revealed a touching photo of my late husband after 7 years. Barbara sat in her sunlit kitchen, the scent of waning autumn wafting through the window, reminding her of crowded Thanksgiving tables and the warmth of family. But the house felt empty now, echoing with memories of laughter that faded away with Frank's passing 7 years ago. The rift with Jenna, her daughter-in-law, weighed heavily on her heart. Once they were bound by a shared love for Frank. Now they were simply two women navigating their grief in silence, the chasm among them widening every day. Meanwhile, Jenna was struggling, her face drawn tight with worry. A single mother working long shifts at the diner, she felt cornered and exhausted, the bills piling up like fallen leaves outside. Each month felt like a tightrope walk. Could she even keep a roof over her child's head? The pressure mounted, but showing weakness to Barbara felt impossible. Each encounter a reminder of joy turned to sorrow. That's how she found it. The old smartphone, its faded screen buried under dust and cobwebs. She hesitated, memories flashing back like grainy film. What would she uncover? Before she knew it, Jenna had plugged it in. The screen lit up, revealing a snapshot of Frank. A carefree grin, holding their first grandchild, the world infused with joy. It hit her like a wave, warm and uncomfortable. Memories she'd thought were buried were suddenly alive again. Could this be the doorway to reconciliation? She imagined an afternoon spent with Barbara, the two of them sharing coffee and stories, righting wrongs instead of remaining adversaries. Her heart raced at the thought. "Before we continue," she said hesitantly, mistaking a moment of vulnerability for strength, "I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." As Jenna approached Barbara later that week, she felt a crackle in the air, a thick tension of need and fear. Barbara looked up, her face a blend of confusion and curiosity. Would memory heal their wounds? But what lay beneath was more complex, a tenuous knot of unresolved resentment and desperate yearning for connection. Could they gather around the lingering warmth of Frank's memory? Or were they too far gone? At that moment, Jenna's phone buzzed, a reminder of her impending bills, a harsh reminder of reality lurking just outside their moment. The fear of losing her home lingered, threatening to overshadow the joy of nostalgia. With every step toward Barbara, she questioned. Would forging this bond only dig them deeper into despair? As Barbara's eyes met hers, unspoken words gathered like storm clouds. Together they stood on the precipice of something vital, yet terrifying. Would they reach each other across the chasm of shared grief? Or would the storm of their realities sweep them apart once more? As the crisp air of autumn continued to swirl outside, carries an unsettling reminder of time's passage, Barbara contemplated the fragile threads that bound her and Jenna. Time had turned them into strangers, sharing memories, but lacking understanding. She knew she had to act. Staring at the empty seat across the table was becoming unbearable. In that moment, the weight of both their pasts pressed down like a heavy fog, dampening the hope that Jenna's discovery could usher in a reconciliation. Yet the photo, a fleeting glance at a happier time, had ignited something dormant within both of them. It was time to confront not only the pain, but also their parallel griefs. Jenna arrived at Barbara's doorstep the next day, summoning every ounce of courage she had. The strength to face her could come only from a relentless need for authentic connection. They greeted each other with strained smiles, polite, cautious, unsure of the bridge being built beneath their feet. Can we sit in the garden? Jenna suggested, trying to weave in warmth with the invitation. Barbara nodded, allowing herself to hope. The garden, witness to countless family gatherings, seemed the right place for the weight of the past to shatter, if only slightly. As they settled, Jenna pulled the phone from her pocket. "I found something," she began, her voice wavering, betraying her anxiety. "What is it?" Barbara asked, her heart pounding at the possibility of bridging the vast distance between them. Jenna handed over the device, the picture illuminating memories not just of Frank, but of shared joys. Their family. Her breath caught in Barbara's throat. "You remember this day?" Jenna breathed, glancing up at Barbara, seeking acknowledgement. "I do." "He was so proud," came Barbara's strained response. The image tugged at her heart, and she felt a surge of longing for the laughter, the love, now subdued under layers of unresolved emotions. Jenna continued. "I miss him, Barb. I miss how things were. But I thought you were mad at me for how things ended up. I was hurt," Barbara admitted quietly, her vulnerability creeping through the cracks of her rigid facade. "You didn't talk to me when he was sick. I felt so alone." The admission hung in the air, heavy and yet freeing, a crack in both their defenses. "I didn't know how to reach out. I was overwhelmed. I didn't want to hurt you more," Jenna replied, the tension slowly dissolving as they exchanged shared guilt. Neither of us wanted to hurt the other. "But we did," Barbara reasoned, her gaze softening. With their shared grief now laid bare, a path forward began to take shape. Over the next hour, conversations dripped like the autumn leaves falling around them, slow yet purposeful. They shared stories of Frank, laughter mingled with sadness, each tale a stepping stone toward healing. The memories acted as a balm for their wounds, yet a part of Barbara remained unsettled. With Jenna's mounting bills, how could she reconcile her desire to rebuild their relationship with the reality of her daughter-in-law's struggles? I've been thinking about how I could help you," Barbara ventured, gauging Jenna's reaction, the gravity of her offer pressing down. "Is there something I can do?" Jenna looked startled, hope flickering in her eyes like a candle flame. But also concern. Did accepting help mean surrendering independence? The question lingered heavy, threatening to disrupt the fragile connection that they had begun to build again. Caught between the echoes of past resentments and the potential for a renewed bond, they both knew something needed to change. Was healing a simple act of collaboration, or was it more complex, invested with vulnerabilities they had to be careful not to expose? "Let's take it one step at a time," Jenna said finally, her voice firm but considerate. "But I don't know where that will lead us." Barbara nodded, the feelings of loss and promise knitting together as they looked toward the horizon, faint light breaking through the clouds. They were ready to embrace this uncertain territory, together, however tentative it might be. As they turned to leave the garden, a new thought emerged, heavy with consequence. What if an honest conversation about their dreams and fears could help them not only mend their past, but also reshape their futures? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the garden, Barbara felt a mixture of trepidation and excitement with each step away from the memories they had just uncovered. Jenna's vulnerability had cracked open a window that had long been sealed shut. Now, the prospect of stepping through it, into the territory of their mended relationship, felt both exhilarating and daunting. Barbara had long prided herself on her independence and resilience. Over the years, she forged a life marked by career achievements and personal strength. But the lessons of the past few months had urged her to consider that sometimes strength lies in connection, not solitude. How had she not realized this sooner, especially with Jenna, who was more than just a daughter-in-law? She carried pieces of Frank within her, pieces Barbara had yet to fully embrace. The uncertainty of how to assist Jenna gnawed at her, as did the lingering question of her own worthiness in this newly burgeoning relationship. There was a latent strain of guilt woven through the fabric of her maternal instincts. What if helping only makes things worse? The thought crawled across her mind, almost like a mantra she couldn't shake. That evening, as she prepared dinner, she found herself reflecting on her career, a solid trajectory built upon her skills as an administrator in a thriving nonprofit. She knew how to nurture growth in organizations, and now she faced a similar challenge within the constructs of her own family. The ambition she applied to her work could be translated into the commitment she wished to foster with Jenna. Pondering logistics and creative ways to help Jenna, Barbara imagined restructuring their dynamic. Maybe I could teach her budgeting, provide advice for job applications, or even assist with interviews. Empower her to stand on her own feet, while demonstrating that I'm not just an observer, but an invested supporter. The thought filled her with renewed determination. She could channel her professional abilities into personal ones. As she conjured images of helping Jenna navigate her struggles while fostering independence, something shifted within Barbara. She envisioned weekly check-ins, informal lessons that felt more like shared joy than obligation. The idea buzzed in her mind like electrified anticipation, but she had to be careful. Would an offer to help be seen as meddling? The sudden need for renewed boundaries made her heart race. She'd have to approach the situation delicately. Planning how she would pitch this idea to Jenna consumed her thoughts for the rest of the evening. Finally, she decided on a light, open conversation. Her instincts told her a gentle approach would bear fruit. That night, she sat down to write Jenna a note, one filled with encouragement, but also leaving room for Jenna to dictate the terms of assistance. The handwritten words coiled around her thoughts, each stroke reflecting the love and concern that she wanted to convey. The following day, Barbara chose to deliver this message in person. She hoped the sincerity of her intentions would shine through. As she arrived at Jenna's place with steaming homemade soup, a common comfort food between them, she felt a tremor of apprehension. Jenna opened the door, her tired yet hopeful eyes searching Barbara's face for an indication of what was to come. "Hi, I brought you something," Barbara said, presenting the pot with a tentative smile, her heart fluttering like a hummingbird. "Thank you," Jenna replied, clearly surprised, but warmth flickered in her expression. As they settled in the kitchen, steam curling in the air like their shared history, Barbara took a deep breath, ready to sow the seeds of her new approach. "I was thinking, maybe we could work together on some budgeting ideas or job applications." The moment felt pivotal, the kind of moment that could realign their paths entirely. Jenna's brow furrowed slightly, but curiosity glimmered beneath her initial hesitation. "What do you mean?" Jenna asked carefully. In that instant, Barbara realized they stood on the precipice of something significant. This was more than just a plan. It was an invitation for mutual growth and understanding. "I want us to navigate this together, Jenna. I think we can build something new. If you're willing, let's take it step by step, explore what we both want." A silence settled thickly as Jenna stared at her, contemplating the offer, weighing the independence she'd clung to against the comfort of support. "Can we really do that?" Jenna finally asked, her voice a whisper as a new weight of possibility settled upon them. Barbara nodded fervently, heart racing, as they prepared to dive deeper into the depths of their relationship, one that had the potential to blossom anew. The seeds of their future hung tantalizingly in the air, as Barbara wondered. How deeply were they prepared to uncover their vulnerabilities together? The conversation lingered in the air, a tapestry woven of hope and unspoken fears. Jenna's eyes revealed layers of internal conflict, and Barbara felt the gravity of the moment. She had initiated an opening, but would Jenna step through? Let's start small, Barbara suggested softly, her pulse quickening. Maybe just one budgeting tip, or we could meet for coffee once a week to discuss your job search. I'm here to help, but only if you want that. Jenna's shoulders relaxed slightly, the tension in her brow easing. I would like that, actually, she admitted cautiously. But I don't want to feel like a project. Barbara's heart swelled, understanding the delicate balance they had to navigate. It's not a project, Jenna. It's a partnership. I want us to be on this journey together. After a few moments, Jenna nodded slowly, a spark of determination igniting in her gaze. Okay, let's do it. The words hung between them, holding the weight of possibility. As they planned their first coffee date, Barbara felt a quiet satisfaction building in her chest. This was more than just a commitment to assist. It was a promise to nurture a bond that had once felt fragile and frayed. She envisioned navigating this territory with Jenna, mapping a landscape that had once felt confused and distant. In the days that followed, Barbara threw herself into preparation. She began to pull together resources, researching budgeting strategies and job application materials. Each evening she lost herself in articles and downloadable templates, her mind alive with excitement. But with the thrill came anxiety, the fear of failure, of not fulfilling her promise. Barbara worried about sending the wrong message. What if Jenna interpreted her guidance as judgment rather than support? Each day the envelope of uncertainty crept closer, competing fiercely against her ambitions. What if this relationship-building endeavor did more harm than good? These questions twisted and turned in her mind, prompting her to reflect on how often she had barricaded herself behind her own walls of independence. Her job at the nonprofit came suddenly back into focus. Nurturing growth had been an instinct she had honed meticulously, but managing familial ties felt intricate and fragile. She decided to treat this as a project, one that demanded her full attention, but came with emotional stakes she was not prepared to fully quantify. During their first coffee meeting, Barbara was rattled by her emotional investment. Sitting across the table from Jenna, watching her sip nervously, she couldn't shake the sensation that every word mattered. Let's go over your expenses and look for areas to save, Barbara began, attempting to guide the conversation gently, minimizing pressure. Jenna took a few deep breaths, visibly grappling with her defenses. I appreciate this, really, she admitted after a moment. But I've never really been good at this stuff. Barbara felt a pang of recognition. She had once been in those very shoes. Neither was I when I started out, she shared, her voice steady and reassuring. But I learned, and I believe you can too. As they discussed saving strategies, Jenna's initial hesitation began to thaw. She actively engaged, asking questions and sharing her personal insights. Barbara could see the light of realization flickering behind her eyes as they discussed not just numbers, but dreams and aspirations. For the first time, they weren't merely relating as mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. They were building a bridge of common experience, one filled with vulnerability and possibility. In sharing her own experiences with failure and frustration, Barbara felt unexpected warmth for the journey she was embarking on alongside Jenna. They were both navigating wounds. Hers, from Frank's passing. Jenna's, from her own insecurities. The weight of the conversation spiraled deeper, growing richer with each exchange. Yet the undercurrent of uncertainty remained. As they left the coffee shop, Barbara felt a shift within her, a realization that navigating relationships could be as enriching as managing projects in her career. Moments of connection held limitless potential, but they also demanded visibility to her own vulnerabilities. Tears threatened to well up as she refrained from voicing her flight of thoughts. Had she abandoned the walls she had built around herself? Later that evening, Barbara reviewed the notes she had taken, scrutinizing every word. While Jenna was opening up, Barbara realized she too needed to embrace her own needs. She was neither impervious nor devoid of longing. There were parts of herself she had buried, longing for acknowledgement. As Barbara prepared for bed, the reality of her dual relationship loomed. She was not just a willing confidant, but also a woman grappling with her own unhealed wounds. How would she share the layers of her emotional journey with Jenna? A few days later, at yet another routine conversation about budgeting, Jenna asked, "How did you manage after Frank passed?" I can't imagine that experience. In that moment, Barbara's heart sank. It was not merely about the numbers anymore. This was the juncture that could unravel or strengthen them both. A point of vulnerability anchoring their shared experience. How could she articulate all that loss and continue to build trust? The silence weighed heavily as Barbara wavered on the precipice of self-revelation. Would she dive into the emotional depths or skim the surface, protecting herself in the shadows? An inner voice whispered urgently. The moment was ripe for honesty. The stakes felt monumental. Would stepping forward strengthen their bond, or unravel it? As Barbara contemplated her next move, the enormity of her decision loomed. The question resonated deeply within her. Was this the moment to embrace her past, or to fortify the fragile bridge they were building? The choice hung in the balance, an imminent decision poised to redefine both their futures. Barbara took a deep breath, her mind racing as she weighed her options. The coffee shop buzzed around them, yet to her, the world had narrowed to a single point. Jenna's earnest gaze waiting for an answer. Their relationship, so precarious yet promising, hinged on this very moment. She could either maintain her emotional guard, or invite Jenna into the more profound undercurrents of her grief. "I managed," Barbara began, her voice trembling slightly. "It wasn't easy. I felt lost for a long time. It's a journey, one that constantly shifts shape." The words, once so difficult to express, emerged with surprising clarity. "What I learned through that struggle is that vulnerability can lead to new connections." Jenna leaned forward, her expression softening. "I'm sorry for that pain," she said quietly. The admission hung between them, a shared acknowledgement of grief that seemed to bind them further. As the conversation evolved, the initially awkward exchange transformed into a dialogue marked by shared understanding. They explored their experiences, untangling their emotions thread by thread. Each confession unveiled a new layer not only of Jenna, but also of Barbara. In sharing her journey through loss, Barbara felt the remnants of her own walls shift, perhaps even crumble. After their meeting, Barbara returned home, her mind still swirling with the revelations they had shared. She settled into the familiar surroundings, but something felt different. The walls that had housed her for years felt less like a refuge and more like a self-imposed prison. It dawned on her that perhaps she had mistaken independence for strength. The night settled around her, darkness creeping in through the windows. But it was the light of possibility that sparked in her heart. If she could share her grief with Jenna, perhaps it was time to confront her own healing journey more openly. With renewed determination, she reached for her journal, a relic of her emotional landscape filled with heartache, aspirations, and unspoken words. As she flipped through the pages, a familiar feeling overwhelmed her. Rediscovering the letters she had written to Frank, some never sent, others tucked safely away to collect dust, brought both an ache and a sense of release. In the vulnerability of emotion lay a truth she had overlooked for years. Each word conjured a memory, leading her to rediscover not just who she had lost, but who she had the potential to become. The act of writing felt cathartic. Yet as Barbara penned her thoughts, she grappled with the fear of exposure. What if sharing her true self now made her more vulnerable? Not just to Jenna, but to the entire world. An unsettling thought took root in her mind. Was she ready to navigate the storm of her past openly? At the next coffee meeting, she decided she would share this emotional exploration with Jenna, using it as a touchstone for deeper trust. But a flutter of anxiety twisted in her stomach. Would Jenna resonate with her journey? Or would it be too much for their newly formed bond? A week went by, and Barbara found herself reflecting on every interaction. Questions resurfaced relentlessly. Was her evolving relationship with Jenna built on mutual honesty or burgeoning dependency? When they reconvened, Barbara noticed an unfamiliar resolve in herself. After discussing budgeting yet again, she leaned in. "I want to share something important with you, Jenna," she said, her heart racing. "It involves Frank and my journey since he passed. I hope that by doing so, I can show you that vulnerability creates a foundation for authentic connection." Jenna's brow furrowed with curiosity, but there was also understanding in her eyes. "I want to hear it," she encouraged gently. Then came the moment that froze Barbara in place. Somewhere in the recesses of her mind, she realized she was teetering on the edge of revelation. Not just for Jenna, but for herself. Sharing this story would mean looking at her emotions head-on, illuminating the dark corners she had been avoiding. The air crackled with tension as Barbara took a deep breath, preparing to unveil her past, believing precariously in the potential healing it held. But her heart was racing, not just for fear of judgment, but for the opportunity to forge an unbroken connection. Yet even as she spoke, in the back of her mind, another thought crept in, whispering warnings about opening too much too soon. She was on the verge of testing their bond, and the stakes felt higher than ever. The door was about to swing open, not only for her and Jenna, but possibly for Barbara herself. As the story of Frank unfolded from her lips, doubt flickered. Would this illumination promise healing, or would it resurrect wounds better left untouched? Would Jenna leave the conversation feeling connected, or would it shatter the delicate trust they had begun to savor? The future of their alliance teetered on the precipice of honesty, and the moment felt both terrifying and exhilarating. Barbara felt the tremor in her voice as she began recounting memories of Frank. Each word carried not just the weight of her loss, but the gradual unearthing of buried emotions that demanded to be expressed. She mentioned their laughter, the adventures they'd shared, and the enormous sense of love that lingered, even after his departure. The air felt stifling, heavy with emotion and expectation. Jenna listened intently, her expression shifting from curiosity to something deeper, perhaps empathy or recognition. When Barbara described Frank's unique smile, Jenna nodded slightly, as though she understood the significance of this little detail. For a moment, Barbara hoped to see a reflection of her own pain in Jenna's eyes, but that reflection was clouded with something that hinted at her own past. "I still hold on to him in a way," Barbara confessed, feeling an unexpected wave of relief. "And yet, I often feel trapped by his memory, held in place while my life spins interminably without him." "I think that's natural," Jenna replied thoughtfully, the corners of her mouth turning up in a soft, reassuring smile. "We carry our losses with us, but they don't define us." The insight made Barbara consider the essence of her journey, the realization of carrying emotions like tools, not weights. As she spoke about her attempts to re-establish her identity, something began to shift within Barbara. Jenna's gentle reflection granted her a deeper appreciation for vulnerability. It was a pathway rather than a pitfall. Yet, the gnawing fear of full exposure lingered, an unsettling reminder that she could risk more than just the exchange of stories. "I want to keep sharing, but I fear it's too much for you," Barbara murmured, dropping her gaze. "I'm afraid I'm asking for something from you that might be outside your capacity to give." "Barbara," Jenna's voice cut through, steady and assured. "You're not asking me to fix anything. Just sharing the burden is enough. Vulnerability creates connections, like you said. And you don't need to carry this alone." Barbara felt a stir of hope. Was she really allowed to lean on someone else again? The notion felt foreign, yet enticing. Taking this step further could offer her its own risks and rewards. What if I told you that I'm afraid of reopening the scar tissue that's just begun to heal? Barbara faced Jenna again, her resolve simmering with uncertainty. What if I fear driving a wedge between us? Instead of recoiling, Jenna leaned in closer. Then we navigate it together. It can feel daunting, but that's how relationships build resilience, through honesty, exploration, and sometimes pain. The rawness of the moment struck Barbara. It wasn't just about revealing her past, it was about stepping into the unknown. If she revealed more of herself, it might put their connection at risk. But avoiding this could also keep them locked in surface-level interaction. With newfound courage mixed with vulnerability, Barbara offered a tentative smile. I guess it's time to face the music, isn't it? She took a deep breath and steeled herself. There are things I've kept bottled up for so long. Perhaps sharing those can guide me toward becoming who I'm meant to be next. The warmth in Jenna's smile felt like a promise, one that hinted at understanding rather than judgment. Encouraged, Barbara embarked on a deeper narrative, weaving through memories she hadn't fully acknowledged. Each word felt like a key, unlocking parts of her heart that had been sealed too tight for years. But then, an unexpected wave of trepidation washed over her as an image of Frank flooded her mind, accompanied by the guilty pang of longing. Was this pursuit of vulnerability going to open doors better left closed? Barbara's voice wavered as she navigated her thoughts. Could she still invite Jenna into this intricate mosaic of past and present without daunting her and preserving the bond they had forged? A flicker of doubt aroused in her. Was it common to feel exhilarated and terrified simultaneously? Before she could spiral further into uncertainty, she caught Jenna's unwavering gaze once more, a lifeline anchoring her amidst the swell of emotion. In this moment of raw connection, Barbara realized the stakes had escalated beyond her initial fears. She was not just sharing her story, she was redefining her future. Let's take this journey together, then, Jenna said, her voice a calming current in the chaotic whirlpool of Barbara's thoughts. And suddenly the idea of vulnerability didn't seem so frightening. Instead, it shimmered with the glimmer of honesty and potential. But in the back of Barbara's mind, a question lingered. What would she discover when all the pieces began to assemble? Would this newfound trust reveal paths she never anticipated? Or would it uncover shadows lurking where light sought to penetrate? As she plunged deeper into her history, the fluttering unease reminded her. This altered journey was about to unfold in ways she could never have foreseen. Would she awaken parts of herself she thought long buried? Or were there unknowns waiting to confront her past? Barbara inhaled deeply, grounding herself as she prepared to navigate through the intricate tapestry of her past. The dim light of the room felt like a cocoon, protecting her as she unraveled the emotions she had safeguarded for so long. She couldn't shake the feeling that revealing more of herself to Jenna was akin to stripping layers away, not just of her memories, but of the very essence of who she was becoming. Frank used to say that sharing our stories was like offering a piece of ourselves. She began hesitantly, her heart racing with the anticipation of vulnerability. It's terrifying, but it's also liberating. I guess he always believed that connection led to healing. Jenna nodded, her unwavering attention embracing Barbara's words like a warm blanket. And here you are, ready to share. That speaks volumes about your strength. Barbara smiled weakly, but the weight of those words felt like a double-edged sword. Strength was the last thing she felt. As she recalled moments with Frank, she hesitated at the chasm that had formed between nostalgia and the present. She was ready to let go, yet something tethered her to the past. Both the joyful moments with Frank and the undeniable grief that followed his absence. Do you ever wonder if reopening old wounds is worth the risk? Barbara asked, her voice barely a whisper. I mean, part of me feels like I would just be driving an even bigger wedge into my heart. Jenna's gaze softened. It is absolutely risky, but think about what you stand to gain if you do. Maybe you'll discover something new about yourself, something powerful that can transform how you navigate the world. Her words hung in the air, challenging Barbara to confront the demons lingering in her psyche. The thought of discovering strength beyond her grief sent an exhilarating shiver down her spine. Could she emerge from this exploration not just intact, but enlightened? Maybe I fear that revealing too much means I'll have to confront what I've buried, Barbara confessed. There are experiences I've tucked away neatly, thinking they might fade with time. But who am I really without them? Jenna watched intently, her brow furrowing in contemplation. Facing them might be the key to unlocking a more profound sense of who you are. What if those buried experiences are the catalysts for a new beginning? Scary as it is, the past can inform the present, but it shouldn't dictate it. What Jenna said struck a chord. Barbara realized that perhaps the scars she feared would unravel her identity were actually stepping stones toward empowerment. Slowly, the pieces began to assemble. It was not the memories of Frank that weighed her down, but the way she had safeguarded them like fragile glass. I'm beginning to understand. It's not just about the pain of losing Frank, she continued, an unexpected clarity emerging. It's about how I've allowed that pain to shape my existence. Holding on to his memory shouldn't constrict me. It can liberate me if I allow it. As her words flowed like a newly opened stream, Barbara felt the tension within her transform. Self-doubt began to dissipate, revealing a flicker of determination. She had relied on her past as a crutch instead of a foundation for growth. "But how do I start?" she asked, her voice steadying. "How do I confront all those memories without getting lost in them?" Jenna leaned in, her eyes sparkling with understanding. "Start with what you think is the most pressing. One moment that shaped you. Share it with me, and let's explore it together." Barbara's heart raced. What was the moment she could begin with? With Frank's passing, everything felt entwined. It was hard to tease apart the joy from the sorrow. Focusing on one specific memory began to feel overwhelming, yet engaging with it was precisely what she desperately sought. As the words danced on the tip of her tongue, a realization hit her. The picture of Frank she carried in her heart wasn't a weight. It was a guiding star, leading her toward understanding. "The day he proposed," she said quietly, the image flooding her mind. "It was the moment when everything changed, and it revealed the depth of our love." But even as she began to recount that pivotal moment, a troubling thought emerged. What if it all unraveled in unexpected ways, exposing layers of grief she wasn't prepared to confront? Yet somewhere within her, an ember ignited, a dichotomy of fear mixed exhilaratingly with hope. As she shared the memory, each detail coming to life, Barbara could feel the tight knots in her chest loosening, step by step. The more she articulated her experience, the more she began to understand that acknowledging her emotions didn't mean being consumed by them. However, both exhilaration and dread tumbled together. Could she navigate this new path without losing herself entirely? Would confronting such a pivotal moment overshadow her bond with Jenna, risking the very connection she was now cultivating? With each passing moment, Barbara realized she was on the brink of uncharted territory. The hard-won awareness that true vulnerability could lead to self-discovery was intoxicating. But would it ultimately reveal a piece of herself she was truly ready to face? As the words flowed, Barbara felt alive with the possibility of what lay ahead. A step away from the shadows, and into a life where she could redefine her identity on her own terms. And beneath it all lingered the nagging doubt. What if she ventured too far into the past, encountering fractures she wasn't prepared to mend? The journey of discovery was accelerating, and Barbara understood one thing for certain. This path seemed to hold the promise of something transformational, but she had yet to uncover what disquieting revelations still lurked just beyond her reach. With each word, She unearthed the possibility of the profound. But at what cost? The memory enveloped Barbara like a vivid tapestry, but with each thread recounted, threads of doubt started to weave themselves in. The picturesque day of Frank's proposal felt far away, and as she shared it with Jenna, the warmth of nostalgia clashed against the cold touch of loss. Frank got down on one knee in that little park by the lake, she recalled with a shaky breath. The sun was just setting and casting this golden light all around us. He looked up at me, and I could see everything in his eyes. The love, the vulnerability. It felt like a promise. She swallowed hard, the gravity of the moment weighing heavily on her chest. That moment must have been magical, Jenna encouraged, her voice gentle. But Barbara could hear the unvoiced question. How had that magic turned into sorrow? Yet time remained an unforgiving witness. The memory flickered, revealing not just love, but Frank's absence carved into the heart of it all. Moments of laughter morphed into waves of sadness. Did she really carry that love with her? Or had she built a barricade around her heart in its name? What was it that you felt then? Jenna asked, prompting deeper reflection. Barbara paused, uncertainty tangling in her thoughts. I felt cherished, wanted, like nothing could disturb our happiness. It was a turning point. Everything from then seemed to hold a different weight. But now... Jenna's voice cut through the haze, challenging Barbara's introspection. It's complicated, she whispered. His absence feels like a shadow, always there, always lurking, sometimes blinding. The realization hit her. That was what she feared. Not the memories themselves, but the overwhelming impact of grief that still resonated in her life. Jenna remained silent, allowing the weight of Barbara's words to settle. The stillness of the room contrasted sharply with the tumult within Barbara's heart. She needed to explore her pain, yet apprehension filled her soul like a cold fog. Do you believe it's time to redefine that moment? Jenna suggested. What if you allowed yourself to feel the joy of that proposal, even alongside the sorrow? The thought stopped Barbara in her tracks. Accepting joy felt monumental, almost sacrilegious when contrasted with the grief she held. Yet perhaps Jenna was right. Wasn't the essence of having loved Frank to carry forth the joy he brought her? But how? Barbara's voice trembled, revealing her resistance. What if I can't separate them? What if there's no joy without the pain? Then that's the journey, Barbara. Learning to dance with both sides, Jenna replied softly. Embracing the reality that love and loss can coexist. As Barbara pondered Jenna's words, she felt a nagging stirring within her. It was time to confront those powerful dualities. The prospect wasn't merely daunting. It was exhilarating. I think I could try, Barbara said slowly, willing herself to absorb Jenna's suggestion. Maybe it's about honoring what was while letting it inform what can be. The idea started to bloom within her, illuminating pathways previously obscured by her hesitation. If she could shape her identity moving forward, perhaps she could reclaim the love and memories that once felt like chains wrapping around her heart. What if I looked at the proposal moment, not as a sheer event, but as a doorway into the kind of love I wish to embrace in my life now? Barbara pondered, testing the concept. There was a freshness in her voice now, a tentative determination. She started envisioning ways to integrate the lessons learned from Frank into her present. But just as hope began to rise, a flicker of doubt sneaked in. What if recontextualizing that memory meant inviting the fragility of grief back to the forefront? Would she be ready to engage in a conversation with the void Frank had left behind? How will I hold on to the joyful essence without getting lost in the sorrow all over again? She wondered aloud, anxiety creeping back in. Start small. Allow the memories to speak without forcing them, Jenna encouraged, Share moments with me. Just the essence of it, without the weight. Barbara felt the weight of those words solidifying into a foundation beneath her feet. The juxtaposition of resilience and sensitivity began sculpting her mindset. By slowly crafting how she navigated the past, she could draw from both love and loss to construct a narrative that empowered rather than diminished her. Yet amid this burgeoning realization, uncertainty loomed. Could she transform memories into stepping stones instead of stumbling blocks? As they continued to unpack layers of meaning, Barbara felt the impending storm of self-discovery. The very essence of who she was becoming remained tantalizingly close, yet painfully elusive. Each shared memory began to blare like a siren, beckoning her toward greater revelations, confrontations she had to embrace. As she sat poised on the threshold of renewal, she grasped one fact. Her heart was now a battleground between the love of yesterday and the ambivalence of tomorrow. With a newfound breath of courage, Barbara realized the time for her transformation had come. But the question remained. What profound lessons about herself awaited just beyond the horizon of her past? How much would she need to confront before she could fully embrace a future filled with purpose she had yet to define? The morning sun streamed through the kitchen window, casting soft rays onto Barbara's journal, which lay open on the table. With each page she filled, a powerful solitude enveloped her, interrupted only by the quiet sound of her pen scratching against parchment. Today marked her commitment, to peel away the layers of grief, to give voice to the memories that sparked both joy and sorrow. She began scribbling thoughts that danced through her mind, confronting her uncertainty. Yesterday was filled with laughter, she wrote, even if it stings like a fresh bruise. With each phrase, she distanced herself from the pain while consciously weaving Frank's laughter into the fabric of her day-to-day existence. Would it be enough? The question loomed large, nearly suffocating her newfound resolve. Emboldened by Jenna's challenge, she decided to create a ritual in honor of Frank. A small ceremony where she would revisit the cherished memories without sinking into the dark abyss of loss. Devotion and fears wrestled with one another as she crafted an agenda. What would she say? How could she honor Frank's love while simultaneously embracing the essence of her current life? The days leading up to the ritual were rife with unrest. One moment she felt buoyed by her intentions, and the next, doubt crept in. The simple act of bringing forth the past invoked phantom fears. What if the sadness overshadowed the joy? On the evening of the occasion, Barbara stood in her living room, cocooned in a comforting blend of candlelight and the delicate fragrance of lilacs. Surrounded by framed photographs, each capturing a moment in time with Frank, she confronted the vulnerability gnawing at her. Tonight, I am honoring you. She spoke softly to the air, feeling as if he was standing beside her. But I'm also honoring me, my right to feel free and loved again. The first photograph she picked up sent waves of warmth through her. It was from their first hiking trip together, Frank grinning widely against a backdrop of towering mountains. Do you remember this? She mouthed to the image, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Reflectively, she picked up a small notebook and began writing down the qualities that made her love him, the things she admired. His generosity, sense of humor, adventurous spirit. Each characteristic danced in her mind like notes in a beautiful symphony. With each phrase, joy and nostalgia began to overlap, creating a richer tapestry than she had thought possible. Yet, as she immersed herself in the exercise, feelings of guilt weighed heavily on her. Was she dishonoring his memory by establishing boundaries around her pain? The specter of grief loomed larger now, whispering reminders of emptiness. Would Frank approve? Would he want her to linger in sorrow? As if sensing her internal turmoil, she heard her phone buzz on the counter. It was a message from Jenna, encouraging her to breathe, to remember love's resilience. You don't have to forget in order to move forward. It read. Barbara closed her eyes, allowing the words to wash over her. Yes, to move forward without erasing the past was the point. Gaining momentum, Barbara shifted gears, asking herself questions to ignite her discovery process. What picture encapsulated the laughter they shared? What melody could represent the moments of pure bliss? Formulating these inquiries allowed her to build new connections to the past, rather than merely rehashing old tales. The final act of her self-imposed ceremony unfolded with surprising grace. She stood before the photos, her heart aligned with purpose. Clarity rang through her as she spoke the words aloud. I will cartwheel through life as you taught me, and I'll carry you with me. Not as a shadow, but as a guiding light. With resolve cascading through her like a burst of summer heat, she felt the need to make it real. To set intentions not just for that night, but for a future filled with potential. She would visit places that sparked joy, take solo trips, dance in her living room without hesitation, and perhaps, one day, embrace love again. As she blew out the final candle, a flicker illuminated her path ahead. This was the beginning. A pivot not just toward understanding grief, but embracing life that surged with passion, promise, and possibility. But as she placed her hands on the photos to the side, she hesitated. Was leaving her past behind even possible? The echoes of laughter and loss resonated in her heart, electrifying her with wonder and trepidation. The space between those moments was fragile and profound. What if that fragility was precisely what she needed to unlock a deeper understanding? What awaited her when she acknowledged the duality of love and loss? As Barbara stepped away, the lingering question remained. Was she ready to embrace the next phase of her journey? One that would lead her closer to discovering the depths of her own resilience? The weeks flowed like a river, transforming Barbara with each bend and curve. Her ritual had ignited a fire within her, a desire to reshape her reality while embracing the cherished memories of Frank. Each day, she approached her reflections with a newfound energy that led her to articulate her aspirations rather than simply endure her past. With Jenna's encouragement still echoing in her mind, Barbara committed to action. She carved out moments to explore activities that had once sparked joy. She signed up for a pottery class, reconnecting with the creative spirit that had laid dormant. The first time she shaped clay into a vessel, she felt alive, as if each turn of the wheel resonated with Frank's laughter, filling her heart rather than weighing it down. I can feel him with me, she said to Jenna, who cheered her on throughout each trial and triumph. The classes became a space of transformation where grief and joy intertwined and blossomed. The thrill of discovery became a testament to her resilience, not just in crafting art, but also in redefining her perspective on life. As fall deepened, the vibrant colors of the leaves mirrored the changes in Barbara. She organized weekly outings, hikes to the very mountains she and Frank had explored together, now with a renewed sense of purpose. Each step carried weight and promise, and as she ascended paths once climbed with sorrow, she felt a lightness that was previously unimaginable. She began to speak about Frank casually, not as a ghost lurking in her past, but as a beloved character etched eternally in her heart. This is where we conquered our first summit, she revealed to Jenna, who joined her on many of these adventures. And look at that view, it's breathtaking. Jenna smiled, capturing the moment on her phone. You're breathtaking, Jenna replied genuinely. Look how far you've come. Barbara began to recognize the significance of this shared journey. She was not just transforming herself, but also nurturing a growing bond with Jenna. Each encounter crystallized their connection, pushing aside remnants of past bitterness. Just as Barbara was awakening, so too was Jenna, both women mirroring each other's vulnerabilities as they blossomed into their authentic selves. Not only had Barbara redefined her relationship with grief, but she also confronted her professional capabilities. Fueled by renewed confidence, she found herself drawn back to her nonprofit work, where her adept leadership skills shone. Ideas began to flow effortlessly, and her team embraced her vision for innovative programs aimed at community support, allowing her to channel emotional growth into tangible outcomes. The hesitations that had once clouded her approach vanished as she navigated meetings with clarity and purpose. Even at home, she ventured into unscripted conversations about life aspirations, illuminating previously unexplored corners of her heart. "What do you want next?" She posed to Jenna one evening over tea, her voice soft yet resolute. "I want to feel secure," Jenna admitted. "It's been a while since I've allowed myself to dream." "Together we can dream," Barbara said, extending her hand across the table, offering unyielding support. "Let's craft those dreams into plans." That night, as they brainstormed their aspirations, their voices mingling with laughter and warmth, Barbara felt a manifestation of shared rejuvenation. Each confession became an exchange of light, igniting new pathways that allowed both women to reclaim their narratives. The culmination of this transformation shifted rapidly. As winter approached, a significant opportunity presented itself. Barbara was invited to lead a panel discussion at a nonprofit conference on navigating grief to empower innovation, a topic that resonated with her personal journey. The fear that had once paralyzed her melted away under the weight of responsibility, replaced with a profound calling to inspire others. On the day of the conference, Barbara walked into the auditorium, a sense of solid confidence radiating from her presence. Surrounded by familiar faces from her professional past, she shared her story, detailing how loss had illuminated her resilience. "Grief doesn't diminish love. It has the potential to enhance our capacity for connection, fuel our passions, and drive meaningful change," she proclaimed, voice steady. As she spoke, she saw heads nodding. The audience resonated with her, their empathy palpable, a validation of her journey's significance. Afterward, she received multiple accolades, recognition not only of her story, but of her ability to transform experience into empowerment. Returning home that evening, she felt an overwhelming wave of satisfaction wash over her. No longer did she simply move through life, she actively shaped it. The journey she had taken to unearth her past had opened new avenues of possibility and had solidified her place, not just among her peers, but within her own life. In a quiet moment, she glanced over at Jenna, who was wrapping up a campaign strategy. "You've come so far, Barb," Jenna said, beaming with admiration. "I've learned to carry love with me," Barbara replied, a smile breaking across her lips. "And to embrace every part of my story." Through healing, Barbara emerged renewed, evolving from a space gripped by grief into one laden with hope, purpose, and understanding. A realization that the essence of her journey was not only about memory, but also about celebrating the life yet to come. As she stood there, enveloped by a sense of fulfillment, she understood the true weight of connection, both to herself and to those around her. Barbara had achieved not only personal reconciliation, but profound growth, a testament that even in the shadows of loss, one can learn to bask in the light of possibility. Now it is your turn. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait, even one more second to share, because only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.